Welcome to the UK 4-hour work week, where you will find all you need to break free and live the life you want.
When I was 21, I started my first business, and it was a tremendous failure. Went bankrupt within a year, lost my house, my car, everything. And again, something really, really valuable from that, though. And I was like, well, I sat down and analyzed what the heck went wrong. And I figured out that it all had to do with lack of marketing and sales skills. Like literally 21 of the 28 things that I analyzed went wrong had to do with lack of marketing and sales skills. So I started to study marketing like crazy, and soon enough I became so interested in it. It became more than an interest, it became a passion, and it actually became an obsession that I figured out, hey, you know, I'm reading about this all the time, listening to audios and thinking about it. It must be because, you know, like this is me, and I turned that into a business. And I've never regretted, never looked back. I think it's incredibly fascinating, the field of marketing. And by the way, it really annoys me many times that small businesses tend to think that marketing is about getting the word out there to the marketplace. And for small businesses, as close as, or as far away from the truth as almost can be. Like that's what it's about for big business, okay? About branding and getting your name out to as many people as possible. I'll tell you why. Just to give you an example of why the typical marketing that big business use will not apply to small business. And by the way, I understand why small business owners get the idea that they need to do the same thing as big business, because that's the only marketing we see around us, right? We see billboards, we see, you know, banners on the internet, we see TV ads. Everything is about big business, right? It's not small business that can afford typically the ads that we see around us. So we come to the conclusion that we need to do the same. But imagine that you are a completely newly started company. Let's take something like Coca-Cola. Okay, just imagine that Coca-Cola is completely new, and somebody calls you up and say, "Hello, sir, I'm calling from Coca-Cola. Coke is it. Do you want to buy?" Would that work? It's not enough information, is it? So why does branding work for them? Because they have the time and the money to brainwash you over years and years and years, right? But small businesses, we have to apply a type of message that gets people to take action. It's not about looking good. It's not about getting your message out there. It's about crafting a message that gets people to take action. So more than anything, marketing for small business is about words. It's about understanding how to craft words in a way to get people to take action. Make sense? And literally, I don't know of any other skill that is more profitable in the world than understanding how to master words to get people to take action. And that applies to business, and it applies to politics, right? Who is the best politician? I mean, who wins? Who wins the elections? It's the one who can afford the best speech writers, but also really have the power to convey the meaning to the masses. So really, words rule the world. And I understood that, and I started to study copywriting like crazy, and it really is just absolutely amazing. Like one example, if you heard it before, then don't give it away to the rest of it, because it's really, really fun. There was a headline that was called, put more romance into your life. Okay, put more romance into your life. How would you improve that headline with one letter change? You can add, subtract, or change, but just one letter, not one word, just one letter, and improve the conversion rate of that headline. Put more romances? Yeah, good, but it's not the one. Actually, in very short ads like Google AdWords and Facebook ads, just putting a question mark at the end of the ad, almost in some cases where it almost doesn't even make sense, will actually increase the response rate. And don't feel bad for not guessing it, because to the thousands of people I've given this riddle, there's only like 2 or 3 that's ever guessed it. It's not put more romance into your wife. All right. Lots of people guess that. Yeah, you can add, subtract, or change.
Okay, I put an S on put.
Fan-freaking-tastic. Give her a hand. Woo! Yay! So puts more romance into your life. So why is that more Powerful. It assumes, it implies that something or somebody is doing it for you. It is done for you, and since we are inherently lazy, it's more attractive, right? And apparently that yielded a 300% increase in response rate. It's a 300% difference between put more romance into your life and puts more romance into your life, right? So that's the power of words. Can you see, like, if you take a marketing campaign all the way from, let's just say we do something online, you do a pay-per-click, you know, so a little bit of extra response rate in the actual ad on pay-per-click, a little bit extra response rate on your squeeze page, a little bit extra higher open rates in your email, a little bit higher click-through rate in emails, and a little bit higher response or conversion rate on the final sales letter. Just like small tweaks can yield hundreds, if not thousands of % extra of business. So that's the power of word. For many people, marketing and copywriting seems like it's almost magic. You know, it seems like how can they put words together that actually get a high response rate and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes yields millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions for a marketing campaign. But it's just knowing the right techniques and knowing what's behind it, and you use that, and then the magic will appear. Make sense? So as long as you know the techniques, you can put words together that yields incredible response rates. So just a slight background. After my first business is set, I went bankrupt, and I, for many, many years, tried all kinds of home-based businesses, and finally, 10 years ago, I had my breakthrough, and actually quite big breakthrough to the degree that I achieved not only the 4-hour work week, but I actually did the 4-hour work month. Okay? And moved to Spain and St. Lucia in the Caribbean and just traveled the world and had lots of fun. And I love having that freedom of just being able to do whatever you want. But I'll tell you that unless you actually plan what to do with your life when you achieve the 4-hour work week, you're probably going to wake up one day and be depressed. Because that's what I did. After 8 months, I woke up and was depressed. Actually, it dawned on me, and suddenly realized, holy moly, I've been depressed for weeks. And so I think it's like super important. Like most people that are kind of stuck in a situation or work that they don't like have this dream about laying on the beach and sipping martinis all day long. And understand that because that's what I dreamt about. And when you are there, it's really, really cool for a couple of months. And then it starts to get boring. It's because I think that we inherently, the way that we are, we need to actually be something or do something for other people in the world. To get feedback, to get recognition from other people, to do something for other people. That feels fantastic. And I realized I felt empty. So I needed to go back and actually start working again and honing my skills and go out there and making a difference in the world. So you get that feedback. So please understand that it's great to achieve the 4-hour work week, but it shouldn't be the end of the line. That shouldn't be your end goal because that's really not, it's not going to give you happiness. Honestly, it won't. You know? So, I did a couple businesses and basically completely cocked up my life. Ended up in Dominican Republic 5 years ago. Completely broke. It's a long story, but basically made a couple of bad investments and suddenly I was just broke. And so 5 years ago, came here back to England, where I restarted my life with £2,500. I had it in a safety deposit box in Kensington. That's why I came here. That's the only money I had in the world. And restarted for 5 years ago. And built something called Entrepreneurs in London, which is a community of entrepreneurs where we basically, like a meetup like this. We're actually the biggest business meetup in Europe now. And we're over 10,000 members. So in doing that, in building Entrepreneurs in London, one of the most important things needed for that was email copywriting skills. Because after people have subscribed to your meetup, you need to build relationship with them and to remind them of the meetups and so on and so on. By the way, who here can tell me why is email so crucial and profitable? By the way, if you didn't know it, it's either number 1 or 2. It switches back and forth between number 1 and 2 most profitable marketing technique or marketing technique. There are 5 stages of marketing you must have. There are 5 stages of marketing you must have. You must understand this, okay? Lots of people, especially small businesses, again, because they see big business, they completely skip step number 2 or 3 typically. Number 1 is getting attention. You've got to grab attention, and you do that by being different. Right. Grab attention, get attention of the perfect target prospect. Number 2 is getting the lead. Right. That means that they give you their contact information so you can start building a relationship. Step number 3 is building trust. Okay. Step number 3 is building trust. And step number 4 is asking for the order. And step number 5 is asking for more orders. Okay? And I'll tell you why each single step is incredibly important. And see, here's the thing. Let's say I walk into a bar and I see you. And I say, hey, you look nice. Do you want to get married? What's wrong with that?
It's too fast.
Yes, fantastic. There's no relationship. Some people say it's the wrong answer or wrong question. It's not the wrong question. It's assuming there's a relationship there is not there. There's not a relationship, there is no trust. And that's basically, if you go to like 9 out of 10 websites today, there is no lead capture page. There is no attempt to get people to give you their contact information. Does it make sense? They're just basically assuming, hey, you come to my site and you're going to buy from me. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. And it's just like walking into a bar and say, hey, do you want to get married? Does this make sense? You have to build relationship. That's why email is so important, and why it's getting incredibly more important all the time is because the cost of marketing is increasing all the time. The click price is going up. So you'll have to, in your marketing, really start to focus on trust. It's one of the most important elements. Because you cannot make a sale without trust. Make sense? Right? One of my principles is never sell to a stranger. Right? We've always learned don't talk to strangers, so it's easy to remember. Never sell to a stranger. Don't try to sell to a stranger. You have to have a relationship first. If you try to sell to strangers, you will lose money. It's going to be too expensive. Step number 5, by the way, is also incredibly important. Again, because the cost of marketing is increasing. So if you don't have a process of selling to somebody over and over and over again with multiple products, you're probably going to go broke. You're going to lose to competitors that have a series of products to sell, or a subscription-based service where people can be subscribed, like subscribing and paying on a monthly basis. Make sense so far? So how do you write a good email? Well, we're going to go through a few examples here, and there's a lot of ways to do it, and of course it depends a lot on your target market. How many people here know Frank Kern, famous internet marketer? Frank Kern? All right, good. All right, only one. That's good. So you're not brainwashed behind me. I have the highest respect for Frank, and I'm kind of a fan. I'm a secret fan. But sometimes there are people that, that become famous of something because of something. They do something and it worked really well, and then that's the only thing they'll do from then on. That's the only message that we'll have. Frank tends to say, and then you will see this in a lot of internet marketing newsletters, you see a style that is extremely colloquial, extremely assuming friendship. Okay, and it works in certain areas, it works in certain niches, but don't assume necessarily it's going to work in yours. So if you hear an internet marketer say, write like a trashy novel, because that's what Frank says, and he's been exceptionally successful with it. I mean, he's done his marketing campaigns. He's the only person in the internet marketing field that's done 24 million in less than 24 hours in his campaigns, right? But it's not necessarily going to work in every single market to say, hey, dude, right? Because that's the kind of way that he writes. So, however, it is, I think, in almost every single market, you can write in a much, much more friendly and down-to-earth and natural way. And probably you can probably push yourself to write more like you write to your friends than you're trying to write to a market. And always, always, always think about how to, like you think about one person you're writing to, you're not writing to a market. If you're thinking like you're writing to a lot of people, you're going to fail. All right? By the way, there's a huge difference between email copywriting and sales letter copywriting. And email copywriting is a much more friendly tone than a sales letter. Right? Basically because the purpose of the email is not to sell to people. If you try to sell to people in the email, you're probably going to fail. So what do you think the purpose of an email is? Creating trust, friendship, yeah. Yeah, build relationship. And what more? Getting them to click through to where the sales letter is, right? Preparing them, basically fertilizing the ground for the sale. Creating a trust, but also getting them to click through to the sales letter. That's typically what you would do in email. You can do a couple of different things, like most people, most companies, especially big companies, have a tendency to it's just about selling. It's just about, okay, here's a product and there's 10% off this week and here, just self-promotion. And that's not going to work, right? You have to create trust. You have to be personal. And one of the biggest errors that I see is that at the end, there's not a name, but there's this is from the customer service department, right? But there's a head of that customer service department. Why doesn't the email come from that person? Does it make sense? You've got to have a name that the email is coming from, and better yet, a signature as well. A signature. Right? So scan a real signature and put it in there so it looks real. Preferably also picture. Do you know that? How many people here have a business card? Right? Take it out for a second. How many of you, if you don't know it, have your face on there? No? And one? How many? One? No? One person. And I can tell you, I actually had, a couple months ago, I took a huge stack of my business cards and went through them. Only about 3% of them had their face on. It is scientifically proven that people will trust a person more the first time they meet them, the more times they have seen the picture. This is scientifically proven. Just think of this. If you met your favorite actor today, would you trust them more than a stranger in the street? I mean, actors live from actually kind of lying, right, and taking on roles. But for most people, the answer will be yes. I would trust them more. And even me, knowing that, hey, these guys are professional liars, I will definitely, if I met Al Pacino, holy shit, man, I want to have a drink with him, let's hang out. You know, because you've seen them so many times, you've seen them, it feels like you know them. The more times people see your face, the more they will feel that they know it. It's the brand. It's just like a logo and a brand and advertising. Your face is your most important brand. Does that make sense? Right? So it's relatively easy to get clients and to live the lifestyle of being on the beach and all that as a copywriter, because copywriting is a very, very high paid skill. When you have a skill that can improve the bottom line of a company, improve their sales, you have something very unique and very, very desired by companies. Does that make sense? It's a very, very high paid skill. And for me, it's the perfect business. You can do it literally. Anybody has a computer today, a laptop, right? So you don't need any investment whatsoever. And you can do it from anywhere with an internet connection. Right? You don't even need a stable internet connection all the time, because you can get clients. You could go to an internet cafe nearby. If it was in Ecuador or whatever, go to an internet cafe, get clients, go home, write the emails, and load them up the week after. You find the markets where you have some kind of an experience in their products, something that you would like to write about, something that is natural to you. It might be a hobby, right? Because to be a great copywriter, the hardest thing about writing great copy is research, is understanding the market. And if you already have a hobby and you already understand the products in the market, you understand the niche, it's much, much quicker for you to write copy for that. Make sense? The research, I mean, sometimes you can bang out an email and a whole email campaign in a couple hours, but the research can take weeks. So if you already know a niche, it's a huge benefit. So find the niches where you already have some experience. or knowledge. Subscribe to the newsletters. Find the bad ones. And you know, like you say, like how can you tell whether a politician lies? They move their lips, right? It's almost the same with email. How can you tell whether an email is bad? They're there, right? They're this very, very rare to find companies that understand copywriting and understand email copywriting. They almost all of them do it badly. And you just subscribe to their newsletters, and see the ones that are bad, and then get back to them and ask a question: how would you like to improve your conversion rate in your email copy, in your email campaigns by 30 to 50% guaranteed? Do you think anybody of them will say no? We don't like to do that. And then it's just up to you to do it. And it honestly is really not that hard. You can also just choose the ones, find the ones that doesn't even have an email newsletter. Like, how would you like to double your profits? They will if you just start having an email newsletter. Does it make sense? There is an absolute humongous opportunity out there to go out and increase companies' bottom line by either just adding a newsletter to what they're doing, or to improve the current one. Make sense? It is honestly, it's the easiest thing in the world to get clients. You find the bad ones, ask them if they want to improve it, and there you go. The trick is, how do you write a good email? Right? And by the way, what I recommend is when you start out that you work for free, about 3 to 4, maybe 5 projects you work for free to prove yourself, right? To prove that you can actually increase somebody's bottom line. When you've done that, then again, it becomes much, much easier to get clients because you have proof. You know, I don't work with anybody that doesn't track anything, because then I'm just like shooting out in the dark. I have no way of seeing whether what I'm doing is working. So for me to be able, and also like one of the biggest things in copywriting and marketing is constantly testing many different headlines against each other, because there's not a copywriter that's born in the world yet that hits the right target every single time. Not even the best of the best of the best copywriters. They fail. Some of their campaigns bomb, right? So testing is incredibly important. So you track and test. And by the way, if you just you can just go in and add that to the campaigns and say, hey, do you have analytics installed? Have you actually tested different versions of headlines? Have you tested different offers? And you know what? It is just incredibly rare that they have. They don't even do that. So just by asking them, hey, what if I can come up with 4 different versions of email subject line, and we can test it and improve your response rate by 10%, 20% or more? Would that be of interest to you? How many do you think is going to say no? We don't like to make more money. None. Right? So clients out there is ripe, and you can do it from everywhere on the globe. And you know, being a copywriter is fantastic, because it's just like you get an idea in the shower, or when you're waking up in the morning, or sometimes in the middle of the night. It's like the brain never stops when it starts thinking about this. And so sometimes it will come at the most unusual periods, and you just have a great idea in the middle of something else. You're doing something else. You're working out or something. Bam, there it is, and it's a $1 million idea. One of the most successful email copywriters in the world, he sends on average 2 emails a day. Right, 2 emails a day, and people say, that's not, you know, won't it bore the market, or, you know, isn't that too much? It's only too much if you constantly try to sell to them. Like, if you have somebody approach you twice a day and said, please buy from me, I'm awesome. Or let's say you have somebody once a week contact you and say, please buy from me, I'm awesome. And you have somebody contact you twice a day and say, can I please help you? Would that be too much to have somebody actually helping you twice a day? Probably not. If they're helpful, if the content is relevant, it's interesting, it's helpful, it's something that you need, it's something that you're looking for right now, something you're desperately looking for, it's not going to be too much. It's never going to be too much. It's only going to be too irrelevant. Right? It's only going to be too salesy. It's only going to be badly written and boring. When you do it a lot, people will also come to the conclusion that you are doing a lot in your field. There's a complete direct relationship between how close your relationship is and how many times you communicate with them. Do not be afraid of communicate with them a lot. And there's another thing, and that is the moment people subscribe to your newsletter, that's when they're the hottest prospect. That's when they're most interested in whatever they wanted to whatever it is that you offered. And that's when you need to hit them really hard. So it's very, very important. If they subscribe and you send an email today and then you send one in another week and another week, you will drown. You will drown in the sea of communication email out there. When they have subscribed, they are hot prospects and they need to be hit hard. So you need to give them lots of content, lots of value, and sell. Right? And you can sell, well, kind of two ways. Right? You can write an email where 80 to 90% of it is value. Okay, these are tips in your field, something that they would like to learn or just information that's relevant to them. And then you can, at the end of that email, when you build up that goodwill and trust, you can have a close, so to speak, and get them to click through to something where you're selling something. Right, so that's one way. That is almost the only way I would recommend for beginners or to medium advanced copywriters. The other way that you see very advanced copywriters use is that they, for 4 days during the week, or not necessarily 4 days, but typically like 80% of the emails they send is complete value. There is no pitch, there is no pluck, there is no click through and buy this. So they use the first part of the week to like really build up value, and then Friday or Saturday they send a pitch. And there's a real pitch. It's a salesy email. But you have to be a good copywriter to be able to do that. Right? So the model that I would recommend you use is 80 to 90% value in the email, and then you can use the last 10% to sell and get them to click through to whatever it is you want to sell. With that model, don't really sell hard in the email. But you also building the professional trust because you're showing that you know your shit. Make sense?
Yeah.
And you can't sell something to somebody if they don't trust you personally or professionally. And that's why you have to build that up first before you sell. In the relationships we're building, we're pre-selling, we're building relationships, and sometimes it's not for the purpose of business, but when we're in business and we do business networking, it's, we do business and we're out there to make a living and to make a good living. The points in your life where you have bought from strangers, you've bought something that you've already been pre-sold on via branding. It's something that you already trusted that product. I almost guarantee you that you never bought anything that you've never seen before, you've never seen this service before, and you bought it from a stranger. It happens almost never. When we buy from strangers, like we walk into a supermarket, it's because we've been pre-sold over and over and over and over and over again, or it's been recommended, which means that the trust is always it has been transferred from the person that you were friend with. You trust eBay and you trust the process that eBay have established, that they have a rating system, and that you can see the people that are trading on there. You probably wouldn't go to a website you'd never heard about and buy from them. It happens. I think I sometimes might do that, but much more inclined to buy something from Amazon or eBay because you trust the brand. Small business don't have that luxury. We don't have the money. That's why we need a process where we grab their attention, get the lead, start building their trust. And again, they will not buy from us unless they trust us, personally and professionally. And then you ask for the order, and then you ask for the order again. There's like 3 or 4 newsletters that I've subscribed to, and one of them is from my biggest mentor in copywriting. And I was literally looking forward to that email every single day. And suddenly it stopped, and I was like, what happened? It's suddenly away, and it almost felt like there was an emptiness because I was looking forward to that information every day. So that's obviously because he was super, super good at writing in a way that connected with me And I felt like he's a friend. I'm waiting for his message that is relevant to me, full of information that I could use in my business and apply right away to make more money. Right? It was super relevant. If it's not relevant, and if it's all salesy, and if it's impersonal, people will unsubscribe quickly. But here's the thing. There's good and bad things about email. Like if you're comparing social media and email, like for example, with our Facebook page for Entrepreneurs in London, we have 23,000 fans, 23,000 something. And the great thing about Facebook pages is that people will almost never unsubscribe. The friends you build with Facebook, they will almost never unfriend you unless you completely change your personality and start doing something crazy, right? With emails, it's almost the opposite. And that's the challenge. It's almost guaranteed, and just think of this, how many emails, newsletters, have you been subscribed to for more than 3, 4, 5 years? It's almost guaranteed that they will leave your email list. They will unsubscribe at some point. It's almost a guarantee. Right? Can you honestly think of an email newsletter that you've been subscribed to for, let's say, more than 3 or 4 years? It's just noise in the background. After 6 months or a year, you unsubscribe. I mean, that's how I do it, and I think most people like that. Either they unsubscribe relatively quickly, or some things say, yeah, it might be relevant at some point, and it will just stay subscribed, and it still keeps on coming. And then one day you realize, you know what, I've been subscribed to this for 9 months, and I'm not really seeing it, I'm not really using it. Unsubscribe. Because something else becomes relevant in your life. So that's the challenge, and that is why you got to hit them hard in the beginning. 1 time a day is perfectly fine. And if you don't do it at least once a week, you're completely losing out to competitors. You should do it 2 or 3 times, 2 to 3, 4 times a week. That's probably a good rate for most companies. You can increase the rate, and that's of course via good words and really building up your expertise and all that kind of stuff, and getting them to understand how great you are. But there's just no way to get everybody to buy. I wish I could figure it out. There's no one strategy that works for all people. And people that subscribe to a list, they subscribe for different reasons. There are different stages and whatever. If you're new, you're probably going to be depressed when you look at oh my God, somebody unsubscribed. But it just happens. And you're also going to get hate mail. You will. You said, you mofo, I've gotten this email, and why are you sending this to me? Because their attention span is like a fly. They cannot remember that 5 minutes earlier they actually subscribed to your newsletter, and they forgot about it, literally, right? And then so they will say, why this? Just don't even respond to it. Just unsubscribe, right? Because if they're responding to the email that they got from you, there'll be an unsubscribe link in the bottom. You just click that, and they're unsubscribed. Boom. Takes you 2 seconds and saves you a lot of heartache. Don't even emotionally you have to separate yourself from that, because it will happen, right? It happens a lot with, now we're over 10,000 members in Entrepreneurs in London. It actually happens quite a lot. And there's a kind of a glitch in Meetup where when people unsubscribe from a list where they still want to be part of the group, but they just don't want to unsubscribe. They don't want the emails, they want to unsubscribe. There's a glitch with that. So when they unsubscribe, they still continue to get the emails. Right? And they complain to me, but I can't do anything about it. It's a glitch in Meetup, right? And some people will get really, really mad. I'm still getting this, and then unsubscribed, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, all right, it's just people. Just copy and paste. This is Meetup. Go to Meetup and ask them about it to fix it. And we've tried that as well. That's it. You cannot be emotionally engaged in it. And that's also one of the things, like if you want to be really successful, you cannot be afraid of upsetting your market. Like, you cannot be afraid. Do I send them too much? Do I send them too much? Will I scare them away? Right? That is kind of a mentality and mindset that comes from scarcity, of only having, I only have like 100 people, I don't want to scare them away. You've got to think much, 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 much bigger, and then think about testing the bottom line, right? If you did a campaign this month and you made £1,000, and you had like 5% unsubscribe rate, Next month you do another campaign and you have 10% unsubscribe rate, but you also doubled your bottom line. You do that. You keep on doing that. You have to be a scientist and look at the numbers. Constantly just look at the numbers, test, 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 not being involved in the emotion of it. Right? So, and that's kind of funny that I say don't be involved in the emotion of it, of what's happening to you, because you, on the other hand, to be a good copywriter, and this is probably the biggest takeaway from you tonight. If you take this away, you can go out and implement it in anything you do that has to do with marketing or even sales or networking, copywriting, and marketing. And that is that most people, first of all, when they try to sell, they sell mostly in features. So they talk about the features of the product. You have to talk about the benefits of the product. A feature is what something is, and benefits what something does. And you have to start writing in a language that really is about benefits. But not only that, that's what, the bad copywriters, the bad marketers, they write about features. The okay ones, the mediocre ones, they write about benefits. The really, really good ones, they understand their clients and the prospects on a such deep level, on an emotional level, and they write about emotions. I mean, you cannot do that necessarily in every single market, but in most markets you can. So, write this down. These are deep, deep, deep questions, and if you can answer them, you can write great copy. You can at least much, much better than now. So, 1, what is keeping my prospect awake at night? Okay. What is keeping my prospect awake at night? 2, what is the most urgent, what is the most pressing problem the prospect has right now? And how do they feel about it? What is the most urgent and pressing? Because, there are lots of things that people can buy, and we might have stuff that, lots of things that we can sell. But the perfect match is like when you find a prospect that has an urgent problem that you can solve. That is somebody who's ready to buy. Those are the kind of people you're looking for. Somebody who has an urgent problem. Does that make sense? And they feel strongly about it. Because when they have an urgent problem, they have a pain, they're looking for solutions they want to solve it. That's a perfect prospect. And so if you understand that and build that into your copy, they'll connect with you. Make sense? So, like for example, so let's say you're a small business owner and you're struggling to get your business running. You're looking for prospects, right? Or you cannot convert. You're not getting enough leads, or you might be looking for prospects. So, for example, I understand that because I've been there. I'm living it every day. I'm a business owner myself. So if I sell you, look, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect, Miss Prospect, whatever. If you're in a situation right now where you just feel like you have the best product and service that really needs to get out there to the market because it makes such a difference, but you just cannot, whatever you've tried, nothing seems to work for you. Nobody wants to listen to you. You cannot get attention. Nobody wants to buy, or it's hard for you. It's a struggle. I have the solution for you. Can you see how if I relate to them by just telling them I understand you, I understand exactly the situation you're in, and then to write about the emotion that they're feeling, it really bonds them to you. And so that's the kind of level of copywriting that really, really works when you when you become very, very emotional. Does it make sense? So, like, try to forget about being professional. Okay, if you're selling something like highly scientific to doctors or whatever, you might be, talking a very professional language. But apart from that, you want to try to write in an emotional language and using strong emotional words, because that will connect with people. And it's also quite unusual, right? Back to the first rule of marketing, you got to be noticed, and the way to be noticed is standing out. You have to be different. Having the newsletter and having a blog, or just a basic, doesn't have to be any fancy. Just the fact that you have a blog, which you can set up for free, get a newsletter for free, doesn't really take that much time. Just the fact that you have it will build you more credibility and trust, right? But if you had to produce something like really fast, I would just contact friends that have businesses and say, hey, how would you like to increase your sales? right? If I can increase the sales for you, would you let me work with you? And do it for free. Or so pay me whatever you think is worth. Or strike a deal with them, even better, strike a deal with them to be paid on results. Because that's what the good copywriters do in the world. They don't pay, they don't take just a payment. Like they take a payment up front and then they take a percentage of the sales. All right, that's also very compelling to go in and say, hey, I won't cost you anything unless it works. Right? Unless you make money, I'm completely free. Right? It's very compelling offer. And then you track it. I mean, again, in the process that we talked about before, you'll have to have measurements in place to track it, because otherwise you as a copywriter can't really work properly, because you're not going to come up with the most brilliant thing in the first one. You're going to have different campaigns you're going to test against each other. Right? So you say, oh, this one was more or less the same as you already have. Oh, this one did 20% better and this one did 50% better. I mean, you will even whether you're being paid a percentage or not, you will have to have access to that anyway, because otherwise you're just working in the dark. You can't see what you're doing, right? Because the way to become good is to see what works. Nobody's going to come out perfect as a copywriter and just be able to come up with the most brilliant thing. It could be a process. It takes a while. Right, let's take a look at some examples. This is probably written by my mentor, Clayton Makepeace. I'm not sure, but this is one of his clients. And I know that in 1 year, Clayton did, for this particular client, one client, $60 million in 1 year. Through email, mostly through email, and a combination of emails promoting webinars where they were actually selling on the webinar. So again, using the emails as priming the pump, creating the trust and getting them ready, getting them to the webinar where they're sold. All right, so 60 million just from one client. It's not too shabby, is it? And he typically gets 10%. So what do you see, by the way? Let me ask you that. Pictures of what? Faces. Ta-da! Right? People. It's what creates trust. Today, we want to know who's behind the brand. And why do you think like Richard Branson and Steve Jobs and these guys have been so successful? They are so an integral part of the company that we trust the people, and then therefore we trust the company. So this is fantastic. This is actually the first email you get when you subscribe to this Wise Guys newsletter, where he tells the whole story of how he got into trading and financial services and all that kind of stuff, and it came from his father and whatever, right? Guess what? More faces. So what does it end with? A very personal greeting, or ending greeting, and the name. He doesn't even write the full name. It's just Martin. Okay? Good luck. God bless. Martin. Very personal. And that's really what you want in email. Right? So you see here, there is, as far as I can see, there is nothing about buy from me, I'm awesome. Well, the whole thing is about, okay, this is what we do in the background and so on and so on. This is what we're going to do for you in the future. Right? This is what I'm going to do for you in the future. Every week on Monday, I'll give you my views on the big picture forces shaping the world. On Tuesday, this guy who's part of a team brings you the latest news and blah, blah, blah. On Wednesdays, we're going to do this. You can see like he's already building up, not even I'm giving you value now, but this is what we're going to do for you in the future, completely free. Right? So if you can make 60 million a year giving away free stuff, I think it works. And by the way, in an extremely competitive market, an extraordinarily competitive market. Right, here's another one from Wise. Okay, again, what does it show? A face. And of course, he's smartly using the fact that he's been on CNBC, so that builds credibility. But what is really important here is the headline. You're trying to, like some of the best copy today is copy that doesn't look like it's selling, but it's almost like magazine style. This is something that you'd read in a magazine. Okay? The biggest shock of all, I mean, that could be a headline in a magazine or newsletter. You've got to like really shake them up and shock them with very strong emotional language. Here, for example, why did the specter of collapse in faraway Hungary help sink the Dow by 323% on Friday. Can you see the emotional language, the emotional intensity, the intensity in the language? It's not just like, hey, we have some nice stuff and you can make some money here. It's like there's an intensity to this language that makes it very compelling. You see what I mean? By the way, one of the most important words you'll ever remember in copywriting is urgency. You've got to build urgency into it, whatever you're writing, because if it's not coming across as something that of high importance and urgency, they're just not going to take action on it. They're going to wait till tomorrow, and tomorrow will be the next day and next week. Another big error, never ever use less than 11 in an email. Never ever. It probably should be 11 or 12. Right, and never use less than 11 anywhere. Okay, just period. So font size 11 or 12. Break it up with different colors. So you can see this is an HTML email. I'm not saying never use text emails, but I know these guys test it heavily. I mean, they test absolutely heavily. So I know they have tested, for their market at least, that HTML emails work better than just text alone. And it's much easier to brand yourself with HTML emails. And as you see, I mean, it doesn't have to be super complicated in terms of graphics. It's just a little bit, a red headline here, a bolder subheadline, a picture here and there, and you have something that's much, much more compelling. So this is the case against short emails. Not against short emails, but just proving that long emails does work if they're well written. Okay? It's not about long versus short. It's really about how well is it written. And it's not about how many were, or sending too much. It's about how relevant it is and how good it is. Again, very personal language. This is from my mentor, Clayton Makepeace. And can you see, like, here is a lot of urgency. You're cutting it close, Pat. You're a little more than 24 hours left. So urgency is super, super, super important. And this is an example of they're actually selling it, right? They're selling it hard, and that's because they have built a lot of value throughout the week. They're building a lot of value in general, sending like super, super incredible newsletters out, so they can do that. Right? But don't be afraid of, from time to time, send a hard-hitting sales letter in email. Right? From time to time, you can do it. Okay? With normal sales letters, you have to put a lot more backbone into it and thinking. With email, it's partially about quantity as well as quality. Right? And don't worry too much about the quality when it comes to emails. Just write like if you think about morning television and radio talk show, right? Two completely different media and two different styles. On radio talk show, you're typically much more fluid, much more in the face. You use more fun. You're just like a little bit more crazy. Whereas morning television, morning news or whatever, is much more formal. And that's how you need to look at email. That is like a radio talk show. Okay, much more personal, much more quick, much more fun, and a little bit more crazy style, because you're really not trying to make a sale. You're trying to connect with them to fertilize the ground for the sale. Does that make sense? So in general, fast. You write fast, and again, don't try to, don't spend too much time to think about, will this work? Right? That's really, really one of the biggest lessons for you as a marketer. Don't think about, will it work? You test it. You have to test it, because even this, again, with the smartest copywriters in the world that are being paid millions a year, they fail. We shouldn't sit and think about, will this work or not? You test it. Right? You see whether it worked. It didn't work, you send out something else. When it comes to email and social media, people's attention span is really, really short. Even if you do something that's completely bombs, they'll have forgotten about it 2 days later. That's just the reality. So when it comes to email, yes, quality, of course, is important, but quantity is also very important. Probably one of the biggest differences between traditional copywriting and email copywriting is intrigue. Okay? Curiosity and intrigue is one of the biggest emotions you're trying to trigger in email. Again, why? Because you're trying to get them to open it, and you're also trying to get them to click through. Right? So intrigue and curiosity are really, really big. You got to be personal. You got to get beneath the skin of really understanding what are the emotions that they are feeling. Not just, hey, I want to, I'm afraid of falling behind the market, but like really what is the emotion behind that and how can you personalize it? By the way, one of the most powerful techniques in copywriting is to finding an enemy and identifying against that enemy. So you're throwing stones at the enemy, attacking the enemy, right? That's what politicians do all the time. We have a really good example of, again, somebody who's not afraid of pissing off people is Jeremy Clarkson, right? And they say every time that he attacks the environmentalists, he makes more money. Every time he attacks the environmentalists, he makes more money. Traffic goes up, he sells more magazines, he sells more of this. Because that's, for him, that's the enemy. It's like, oh, those guys that are against fast cars and blah, 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 right? So he attacks them, and then the people that identify with him, they love him for it. Does it make sense? So if you attack the enemy of your prospects and clients, they will love you for it. And don't be afraid of turning the other guys away. Right? If you try to be everything for everybody, you'll just be like sort of okay. Right? You're not going to be the person that they feel is their champion. Like right now, everybody like loves fast cars. All the motorheads, they love Jeremy Clarkson because he's their champion. Make sense? All right, cool. Right, so can you go out and use this? Yes, you can. Go out and use it, and like, I hope that I will inspire you to do for the rest of your life, to study marketing, but more specifically words, and how words influence and trigger emotion, because emotion will lead to behavior, right? Words control thoughts, thoughts control behavior, thoughts control emotion, and emotion triggers behavior. And if you want to become a successful marketer, that's what you want to do. You want to trigger behavior. All right? So thank you so much for listening to me tonight.
You have been listening to the 4-Hour Workweek podcast, brought to you by 4hourworkweek.co.uk for all your startup and lifestyle resources.